So as you know, this was called for by popular demand from our last interview, and thank you for granting us more time because the
Oh, it's
last
a pleasure.
the last interview went so well that we ran out of time,
Yeah.
and even more than running out of time, we ran out of time to field questions. So a large
Yes.
part of this is us taking the questions so that people can really get to hear you from a perspective of answering their questions. So I don't want to hog you too much. So I've been talking to people, and I would love your opinion on this because they like we are tired of talking on transformation.
Mm.
We've been talking, and my question back to them is what is the alternative? Do we give up talking about it, or do we find the history of where the shortcomings have been, so that we are able to fix the future? Because in Zulu we say indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. That
Mm.
means the people that have walked that path, and I think you've
Mm.
walked the path since the beginning. And I think for this session, I'd love the history of how we got here. And you spoke last time about starting with the preamble.
The
Just give us a
preamble.
context of that, because I'm interested in starting there.
Okay, do you have it on hand to be able to read it? I'll tell you the history, you can read it.
Okay,
If
okay.
that'll work,
I
right?
think it's on my phone. So I might not
It's
be able to read it
yeah,
and do that. Yeah,
it's
but
on
I
my
mean,
phone
maybe
too.
yeah, maybe tell
Um,
us the history. We can
okay.
see what we can do.
So
Yeah,
in 1998, the ad industry was quite progressive and
yeah,
decided that it wanted to transform. The reasons for wanting to transform were that the ad industry at that stage was largely owned by multinationals. And
okay,
the purpose of the transformation was to reclaim the ad industry back into the hands of South African business owners, first
okay,
and foremost. And then to address the injustices and inequalities of the past by making sure that the ad industry was truly representative of the South African population, and that the work created was also representative of a truly South African landscape. At the time, we were doing a lot of adaptation work, a lot of global work. So it felt like the work that was being put on the airwaves was really not authentically South African. And I remember seeing Eva Longoria in a L'Oreal ad, and she was speaking Afrikaans as she flicked her hair. It just looked so weird and so strange.
wow, wow,
So a lot of that was happening, and it wasn't relevant. It wasn't resonating with the South African consumer. And a group of Black professionals went to Parliament. They were called CAFE. They called themselves CAFE. They went to
okay,
Parliament and they lobbied for the transformation of the ad industry.
all right,
In the year 2000, the then Association of Advertising Agencies, the AAA, which is what the AAA school is named after,
okay,
which is today known as the ACA, because years later they included communication.
okay,
They invited the entire industry, and specifically their members, to sign what is a pledge, which is the preamble of the charter. It states, we, the members and agencies of the Association for Communication and Advertising, pledge to do the following. And it spoke about being truly diverse, affording economic participation of previously disadvantaged individuals, making
yeah,
sure that the work that we create is truly authentically South African and represents the diversity of the South African population. And to in a sense transform the industry so that it is South African and that it is equally represented across all of the various cultures, races, etc., tribes
Wow.
in South Africa. And if you read the preamble, that was what the transformation journey was based upon. The MAC
Wow.
Charter emanated from that statement, from that pledge.
So it started in 1998. So
Yes.
this when they addressed Parliament, I was actually thinking in 1998 I was in what is called Standard 5 then. That's primary school. and now we are dealing with the same issues as years later. So that laid the basis. So that's the history and the source for the charter.
Yes.
And how did it move from that preamble to the need to say, okay, now we need a charter? How did that go?
So in 2000, all the agencies, and I promise you, even the multinational agencies, all the players signed that preamble or that pledge, right?
Wow.
And we then started drafting the charter as an industry. And we then decided that a pledge is not enough to hold people accountable. It needs to be regulated formally somehow. So the first step was to have the charter promulgated under what we called Section 12 of the BBBE Act. That was in 2008 when it was promulgated. Okay. Section 12 meant it was recognized by government as the best practice for the industry. However, and the however is a big one, you could opt as a business to still adhere to the basic generic codes of the BBBE Act. So the charter was more stringent in its targets than the BBBE Act. And what we found companies doing is defaulting to the generic codes because it was easier to achieve those targets because they were sitting at ownership at, for example, 26%, right? Yep. Whereas the MAC Charter was asking for 45% in ownership, just as a small example.
Wow.
We then realized, okay, this is not working. And by 2010, we saw that no, it was still optional, or it was still an opt-into if you want to. It was still kind of like, yeah, we pledged, and yes, we are BE compliant, but you know, the charter is a bit too stringent, so that the rate of transformation wasn't happening at a pace that we were comfortable with. We then lobbied for the charter to be promulgated under Section 9(1) of the BBBE Act, which means that the charter was recognized as the measuring criteria for BBBE Act for all companies, not just members of the ACA, all companies as defined in the charter. We managed to do that in 2016, and we had set a deadline for 2018, the 31st of March, for all companies to reach these targets. So we gave them 2 years to be able to get their houses in order, because now the charter being promulgated under Section 9(1) means that it is no longer optional. It is now the measuring stick or for BBBE. A company cannot opt to adhere to the generic codes because they feel like it. They have to be, by law, measured under the MAC Charter, whether they are an ACA member or not. And that was how we set to put the preamble, the vision, down as cast in stone, as the law of the land.
And tell me, Odette, you know, the people that I speak to in the industry have got a big problem with the MAC Charter. Now, when I hear about its intention, when I hear about its history, I kind of think it lost its way. Why do you think people have got such a negative attitude towards the MAC Charter? I've heard people saying you can't tell us about the MAC Charter as the vehicle of transforming our industry. Yet it seems like it was the best instrument that was designed to transform. Why do people have such a problem with it, do you think?
I think it's twofold. I think it's because the journey to get the MAC Charter promulgated and written into law took so long. But I have to explain that it's not a simple process. We also went from the Madiba administration to the Mbeki administration to the Zuma administration, And with every change of administration, and it was happening regularly at that stage, came a complete new change of guard. So the ministers were shuffled around. So you just get to the point where you're ready to present it to the minister to have it approved and gazetted, and then a new minister would come. And then you'd have to start the whole process with the new minister again. So I think the reason why it took so long is easily explained. It's just the political landscape at the time, from president to president, caused problems. Okay. Administratively. However, that's only one part of it. So it feels like, okay, the MAC Charter's been around so long, so why aren't we transformed? Okay. What we need to be asking ourselves now is, since 2016 to 2018, the last 4 years, what has happened?
Yes.
So the second problem is the application of the Charter. And the application of the Charter is not being policed because the Charter Council is not in place. Therefore, loopholes in the form of trusts that are set up, and the way the BBBE deals are being structured aren't being audited by the Charter Council, not just an Empowerdex or a consultant. And when that happens, loopholes can slip in. So definitely the issue of trusts, not only in our industry, but in other industries, is a major problem, because there's a dilution of shareholding that takes place. And there is still the problem of agencies selling off shares, as I spoke about in part 1, to investors. So they value the company at a particular multiple, as if it was being sold commercially, right? And then they sell off those shares to investors, and they then achieve their BBBE points. The staff are not afforded the opportunity to have that equity as an incentive.
Wow.
For example.
So maybe getting back to this issue, like it puzzles me. So when you say that there's a MAC Charter, right, which is probably which is law, right? But there's no council. To me, it sounds like there's a law, but there's no governing body of that law. Is that accurate?
Yes. So a council was supposed to be set up, which was the overseeing body to ensure that all audits are done correctly and to track the rate of transformation, and to make sure that by 2021, when all the charters will be reviewed, all the industries, all 10 critical industries that have charters are where they're supposed to be, or where they were supposed to be by the time of their deadlines. Now, I can't tell you why the Charter Council is not in place. All the names were put forward. So there is a vetting process that takes place. And I do know that just before I left the ACA, one name on the list did not meet the criteria for security clearance, because you've got to go through a process of security clearance. What do you call this?
Vetting, like government vetting.
Government vetting and so on. That would have easily been remedied had another name been put forward.
Wow.
But I can't talk for why that hasn't happened. I've not been at the helm of the ACA for a few years.